Hello wonderful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how I made these beautiful shorts. And if you are ready, let's just get into the video. So the first thing I did was to fold the fabrics into two to measure the front panel of the short. Then for this short, remember that it has an elastic fullness in the waist region, so I'll be using my hips measurements even at the waistline. Then the elastic will be used to compress the fullness at the waistline. So after that, I also added 1.5 inches seam allowance, and I also divided my hips, which is into 410, then into 4 again, 2.5, to measure the crouch extension. So after doing that, I went ahead to measure 2 inches all round for the elastic rack folding. Yes, so the elastic will be sitting in the folding of that 2 inches I marked out. Then after marking out the 2 inches all round, the next thing I did is to measure the crouch, to measure the crouch. So for the crouch, I'll be using 10 inches. I will be considering my crouch for the back. Normally, my hips divided by 4, which is 10, will give me the crouch for the back for a normal pant trousers. But since this short is an elastic and is going to be getting to the waistline, I have to consider the crouch at the back. I hope you get that. So I'll be using that same 10 inches for the crouch even at the front, and the same thing at the back. So after doing that, the next thing I did is to measure the hips line. So from starting from below, beneath the elastic extension, I went ahead to measure it where we are going to measure the hips measurement. Hips 40 divided by 4 is 10, so I just went ahead to mark the 10 inches for my hips, and I also added 1.5 inches seam allowance. And the next thing I did is to connect the hips back to the waistline, so you can see that is the same thing. I also went ahead to connect the crouch extension back into the crouch line, and you can see that is also 2.5 inches. 10 divided by 4 is 2.5, so that is our crouch extension. So the next thing I did after then is to get the midpoint of the crouch. As you can see, we have about 14 inches here, and the midpoint is 7, so I marked the 7 and I marked it all the way down into the M. I'm so sorry guys, I'm so bad with camera. I think I need to learn. I never knew that it was not showing my M. So sorry, but just follow the voice closely and you will get it. So at the M, I went ahead to measure my thigh measurement. Remember that this is a short and is ending like almost at the thigh region. So for the thigh, we'll be dividing my thigh measurement divided by 2, not into 4. So that is 24 divided by 2, that is 12. So I placed 6 at the other side of the crouch, following the guideline, the midpoint, and I also marked 6 at the other side. So after doing that, I connected it into the crouch, and I just connected the 6 also back into my hips line. So sorry you cannot see the M. I promise to do better with cameras. So after doing that, the next thing I did is to cut it out just as it appears. So after cutting out, the next thing I did, I placed the front panel on the fabric to cut the back. I was supposed to fold the fabrics into 2, just like we did for the front, to cut out the back also, but I did not have much fabric, so I was managing my fabric. So I'm going to cut out one panel first, then use the other panel to cut out the other side. Also at the back, I added 3 inches at the crouch line. That is because of the boots at the back, and also because of the elastic running through the back as well. So, and I also added the same 3 even at the crouch extension for the back. And after doing that, the next thing I did, I also added the 3 all the way through, even into the M, through the thigh, and I connected it starting from the crouch region, and I just connected it down into the thigh. And the next thing I did after doing that, I confirmed the measurement. I draw out the crouch line, and after that I just had to cut it out. So the last thing I cut out is the pocket. I used 6.5 inches for the width, and I used 13 inches for the length of the pocket. And after doing that, I just chalked it out and I cut it out. I placed it on the other fabrics and I cut out the second pocket as well. So for the sewing, the first thing I did, I launched the area in which the pocket is going to sit. That is the 2 inches directly for the elastic. Yes, I launched that place, and I also went ahead to measure 6 inches downward. So that would be the length for the opening of the pocket. I measured the 6 inches and I also placed a lunch on it. After that, the next thing I did, I joined down the crouch at the front. Yes, I went ahead to sew it all the way, even into this crouch extension, and I used just one seam to join it together. So after joining it together, this is what we got. The opening, I folded the pocket into two and I placed a lunge at the center. Then after doing that, I made the front part of the pocket face the front part of the front panel of the shirt, and I also went half inches above the lunge we placed initially. Remember that the elastic is going to be about 2 inches, so I place it half inches above the lunge and I stitch it all the way down into where we lunge, that is the 6 inches for the opening of the pocket. So I just ran a straight stitch using about 1 cm to join it all the way down, and I left it at the area of the lunge. After that, the next thing I did, I folded the pocket into two, yes, from the center of the pocket, and I folded it using the wrong side to face the wrong side. So the first thing I did is that I ran a stitch starting from the center of the pocket. I ran it all the way through and I left it 1 inches beneath the actual launch of the fabrics. So I used about a quarter of 1 cm to do the stitching. Is a very tiny one. So after doing that, I just went ahead to cut out the excesses beneath, and after doing that, I also went ahead to place a lunge on where the actual stitch ended. So I turned out the pocket, yes, so back to the wrong side, and I ran a top stitch just as the way we stitched down the first sewing. So I ran a top stitch on it right to where the lunge is. So the next thing to do after that is to secure the pocket well into the actual fabrics of the short. So I did that by running a top stitch on the short and connecting it with the pocket. So I just top stitch directly on it and ended it at where the lunge of the 6 inches is. So guys, I hope you have been enjoying this tutorial. So please, should in case you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, do well to do that. And trust me, you are going to be getting lots of good tutorials, and I hope you are getting this well. Just follow the voice closely and I'm very sure that you will learn something good. So guys, this is what we have after we are done, and the last thing we are going to do is just to hold the main fabrics. Just run a stitch, yeah, a stitch of about 1 inches just to secure it firmly to the short. So I repeated the same thing for the other pockets of the other side of the short, and after that I just moved to the back part of the short. So for the back of the short, I ran a straight stitch from the crouch into the crouch extension using just 1 cm to sew that down, and I placed the front side of the back short facing the front side of the front short, and I just stitched the side down. I stitched the side down using about half inches, which is the seam allowance I left. Remember, we left 1.5 inches, so half inches is going to be for the side. We had used about 1 cm to hold down the crouch, so the remaining one will be used by the elastic. So I just ran a straight stitch starting from the upper part, and I just stitch it all the way through to the end of the short. So after joining the side seam, the next thing I did is to fold in the hem of the shirt, and I used about half inches to do that. Though I could have used more than that, but I was managing the fabrics, so I just used half inches, and I ran a straight stitch connecting it from the first crouch, and I just stitched it all the way down, just as it's appearing by the camera. I stitched it all the way down to the other side of the crouch. I did the same thing for the other side of the shirt, and after I was done with that, the next thing I did is to take in the measurement of the tie and connect it into the lower part of the crouch. So the measurement of my tie is 24. 24 divided by 2, that is 12 on fold. So I'm going to sew down from the 12 inches and sew it all the way down into beneath the crouch measurement, and also measure the same 12 for the other side of the short and connect it all the way down, just as it's appearing by the camera. So the last thing I went ahead to do is that I opened up the 2 inches folding for the elastic, and after I opened it up, I folded it inside, that is the upper part of the shirt. Then I folded it inside, and I took my elastic and pass it inward using a safety pin. When I pulled through the elastic, I measured my waist measurement, and the last thing I did is that I stitched back the crouch connecting the back panel together. And so guys, we are done. So you can see that the shirt is looking so beautiful. Trust me, you want to try this out. So I made this wrap top earlier with it. So in case you also want to learn, you can check in the channel for the tutorial. I have a full tutorial in the channel, and do well to subscribe guys. Until then, I'll see you in the next tutorial. See you guys. Thank you for watching, and bye.